Good afternoon. This is Dr. David A. Paget. Today is Monday, May the 10th, 2021. This is the first day of the second week of the Urban Geography Master course. And I'm going to share my screen. So today we are going to jump into the second week of class. And so let me try to get this into student view. Let's see, student view. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the schedule for this week, and then I'll just jump right into this week's assignment. So here's the schedule. It's in a JPEG format. Okay, so this week, our focus is going to be upon urban inequalities in general. And then we're going to look at urban inequalities from the perspective of urban food deserts. So that'll be today, and then Tuesday. Today we're going to go back and share some of the article reviews just to foster discussion, look at some of that, the ones that were really fit some of the themes of the class, if I can remember which ones were which. And then on Wednesday the 12th, the urban inequalities assignment will be due. We will have a report out and discussion about that. And then on Thursday, I keep saying Friday, on Thursday, we will have a discussion and report out about the food assets mapping assignment. And we'll, on the Wednesday and Thursday, we'll have working sessions on the term paper assignments, just work, check-ins, see where we are, at the story map and some other things. So, but as usual, I will start off with some housekeeping. So let's see, the first bit of housekeeping. Let's see, I think I sent, let's see. Let's take a look at me. I'm not going to record this housekeeping. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do today is have a discussion about the article reviews. Then the second thing we're going to do is talk about urban inequalities. And then the third thing we're going to do is, see, let me look at the schedule, figure out what the third thing we're going to do is today. So, okay, but I'll introduce you to the assignment. We'll talk about that. Okay, so I'm going to go in and, do we have anybody who would like to volunteer to share any of his or her article reviews to kick off the discussion today?
I can share one of my article reviews.
Is that Kiana?
Yes.
Do you want me to share it, or do you share my screen, or are you going to share your screen?
I can share my screen.
Oh, okay. Let me give you permission. Okay, so and you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. Mm, okay. Hi, everybody. This is actually one of the ones that hasn't been graded yet, but I I think this is my no. This isn't my favorite. My favorite one was the second one, so I apologize. Let me open the second one. Okay. So we kind of talked a little bit about this in class about how asthma is prevalent in those neighborhoods that are, close to those factories or close to those industrialized parts of town. In my paper, I focused on Philadelphia. It's a city in Philadelphia by the name of uh,
Uh,
Nicetown.
yeah, Kiana, I'm sorry. Are you I can't see we can't see
Oh,
your article.
I apologize. Can you see it now? Is
We
it
can see it now.
okay? I apologize about that. So, about disparities and neighborhoods to be in the areas of like bus stations and factories and landfills, and over time, that can accumulate to um, for children and adults to grow up with asthma. So we all know that asthma. What asthma is the spasm of the bronchi in the lungs, and it can cause breathing hard. It can cause you to be have loss of breath, and you can wheeze. Um, so urban planning is mainly the reason why it's so prevalent in African American communities, and I focused my article on this place called Nicetown in the Philadelphia. So most of the pollution in Philadelphia comes from their transportation. Like unlike like Nashville and cities down here, Philadelphia is known for like their public transportation. They have a very large transportation sector, and they have like a lot of buses and they get around like that. But in Nicetown, they are literally right next to the bus station. So the bus station is right behind them. Uh, they they have submitted complaints about how like it's so muggy over there, it's smoking, how it's interfering with their everyday day-to-day activities. And not only are they already having trouble with this bus station, but they're also planning to add another natural gas burning power plant to the bus station. So not only are things already bad, they want to make it worse. And that's just the government. And let's see, government officials are they are claiming that this power plant and this bus station isn't the problem. It's they say that it can be like individual problems, like not only government officials but just like environmental officials in general. They say that when African Americans are in these low income homes, it's hard for them to get like ventilation, and it's hard for them to get work done by their landlords. They're saying that they don't have proper ventilation and they don't have proper air conditioning systems, and they say that yeah, the bus station can give them asthma, but what about the cockroaches and all the bugs and all the dust mites? But even though that is a problem, that's a problem as well. The bus station is also a very large issue. So of course this is this is a trend of racism. Like this is and equal. In the white neighborhoods and higher class neighborhoods, you won't see a bus station like in the middle of their neighborhood, and it's just plainly urban planning. They found a place to put it in the Black community. So I just wanted to reference a couple of the references that I made. I referenced the Handbook of Urban Studies about how he was talking about how there is evidence in unequal treatment of blacks and whites in housing, in urban planning, in employment, and it's not only in the USA, it's in Britain as well. And uh we've just been fighting this for like a really long time, and I can't really speak on much of the progression because I don't know much about it as I'd like to, but it is a very prevalent issue, and it's not something that a lot of people don't know about, but we still tend to ignore it, and we just keep putting these bus stations and these power plants and these landfills in the middle of black neighborhoods, and that's one of the main reasons for us having these health problems and asthma problems. And yeah, we will always be fighting for our basic rights, our political rights. But that's mainly all this article was talking about. It was really interesting to me, so I wanted to share it.
Yes, thank you. That's one of the articles I was going to have us discuss today because as we are looking at urban inequalities and to some degree environmental justice, um, yeah, this article falls right in line, and it really also uh, discusses issues surrounding uh, the impact of air quality or poor air quality upon low income communities and children. And in fact, yeah, Keanu, you don't mind stopping your share? And thank you. As a matter of fact, during my presentation at Stanford, you might have heard me mention this project that I've been involved with for the past several years that was discussed in the Nashville scene. And I'll put the link to the article in the chat here. So this was in the green issue of the Nashville scene a couple of weeks ago. And so basically, uh, it's the article focuses upon environmental justice and environmental injustice, but uh, I've partnered with Kimberly Jackson and the Hyde Health Impacts and Degraded Environments organization. And we've been looking at indoor and outdoor air quality in the Casey Homes community, which is the largest public housing community in Nashville. It's about 2,400 uh, residents. And so one of the things that we pointed out in that study is even though I was primarily responsible for looking at the outdoor air quality and the residents' exposures to primary air pollutants and toxic air pollutants, Ms. Jackson's role was to focus upon indoor air pollution. And so if you think about it, human beings, we spend 90% of our time indoors. So regardless of what is happening outside, the air that we breathe for the most part, the air that children breathe for the most part is inside of our homes. But there are no federal regulations for indoor air quality. There's a Clean Air Act, there's a toxic release inventory, there's all kinds of federal regulations for outdoor air. For indoor air, there are no standards that are regulatory standards. There are recommendations for health that are largely based upon the exposure to particulate matter or what have you to outdoor air, but there's none specific to indoor air. So it's not something that is enforceable. So let's say unless it's lead, but not airborne lead. Obviously, if a um, landowner or real estate person or landlord, if a landlord was renting out property, and the landlords are legally bound to make sure that those properties are lead free. So I'm sure if any of you have moved into an apartment, there's a section of your lease where you have to agree, or the landlord has to, or you have to agree the landlord has kept this property lead free. It's in there in most states. I think it's even in Tennessee, or even at the city level. So what Ms. Jackson has been doing is actually educating the residents on how to make their indoor air quality better. And you'd be surprised, there's actually people who do not realize that their smoking triggers their children's asthma attacks. And you might think, well, how could that be? I mean, well, you all are all very highly educated college students, honors students, but most people aren't you. I mean, most people don't go to college. I mean, I think maybe 15 or 16% of African Americans have a 4-year college degree. Maybe 25% perhaps have any kind of college degree. So the vast majority of African Americans don't even experience college, right? So they might get information from anywhere. Anywhere. My mama said I could smoke in front of my kids. She smoked in front of me, so I'm going to smoke in front of my kids. You know, so yeah. But other things are cooking. Uh, uh, Certain fried foods. You fry foods a lot. That's going to put particulate matter in the air. And what was really bad about Casey homes is, if you have a vent above your stove. Now, if you're in a normal safe housing, that vent takes the smoke from your stove outside of your place, right? In these public housing communities, the vent over the stove just blew the stuff away from the stove and stayed inside of the apartment. Didn't go outside at all. And so that's just a part of the building design that was extraordinarily unhealthy. But another thing that Ms. Jackson did was show the residents how to make their own pesticide using non-toxic products, make their own cleaning supplies using non-toxic products. So instead of using bleach, she showed them how to mix certain natural products together to clean their apartments that work just as well as bleach, but didn't, trigger their children's asthma attacks or cause other problems with indoor air pollution. Yeah, so that article just brought all that to mind, and so this Nashville Environmental Justice Initiative is housed at Tennessee State University in collaboration with the Urban Green Lab. So we're at the forefront of this quest and fight for environmental justice. Okay, so we're off to a good start today. Anybody else who wants to volunteer next or be voluntold?
I could go read mine.
So do you want to share your screen, or do you want?
Yeah, you can share.
Okay. So what do you know which one specifically?
Either one of the ones you already graded, the first or second one.
All right, let's see. Dropbox. Oh, you're in the other section. Let's see where. Okay, here we are. And boom, Dropbox. Let's see what did Powell turn in. Yeah, I think, let me see, I'm gonna take a look at both of yours here. Blah, blah, blah. This is the first one. Okay, let me look at the second one. Second article review. Let's look at the first one. Yeah, the second one would probably be more appropriate for next week. Okay, let me pull this up. Powell. Download. Okay, so whenever you're ready.
Okay. So this first article I had was from National Geographic, and it was basically explaining what urbanization is. So I started off by describing what urbanization is, which is the process where populations are moving from rural areas to more urban ones, which inevitably leads to a number of problems that pose a threat to humans and animals that inhabit these cities. That's a problem because as more people move to cities and urban areas, the population goes up, and there's not necessarily enough resources to support that, because it's just like a greater number in one area rather than spaced out around that state. So I began by connecting it to Rutherford Platt's book, Land Use and Society, and basically saying that we already know that we need certain things to survive on this earth. So with the growing population density that urbanization brings to these urban areas around the world, it puts a strain on those resources that we need to survive. The National Geographic said that half of the global population already lives in cities now. So by 2050, they predict that 2/3 of the world's people are expected to live in urban areas. And that's a lot. If we was to imagine that, like we have a pizza and we cut in fours, if three of those would be, filled up. So we know that if in our urban environments, to combat this, the city officials will have to work together with people in that city to basically come up with a plan for that, for the future of that city, to make it still sustainable to support all the people that live there. And I also connected it to one of our textbooks called Resilience Matters by Laurie Mazar. And she said in there that that when a lot of people start moving to these urban populations, it also boosts the percentage of people that live under the poverty line, and it's going to be even harder for them to get those resources that are already so strained. So it's not like it's going to be an equal how can I say this? Like an equal amount given to everybody. So it's going to be a bigger strain on the percentage of population that lives below the poverty line. And it's confirmed by Laurie Mazur in her book. She says that the least fortunate bear the greatest social, economic, and health and environmental costs. So this will just only push them farther below that, not give them an equal amount as, let's say, the rich. So that gives another risk from an unintended consequence from urbanization. And that's basically where I ended it at. It says some things that you can combat this poverty is finding alternative ways of transportation that will help, like air pollution, because that, like Kiana just said, that affects people that in lower poverty areas. And if they create a relationship with the local communities, it'll be easier to find ways to combat this, because 9 times out of 10, these city officials that are creating these solutions, they're not necessarily living and like being affected by what's going on. So if they work with the local community, they can come up with more plans to combat combat the unintended consequences from urbanization.
Yes. So this article by Carrington was kind of a spoiler alert for next week. So next week, we're going to focus in part on the concept of over-urbanization. And so over-urbanization occurs when a city's population or city's human population gets too large for the city to handle. And so there's not enough water, there's not enough housing, there's not enough electricity, there's not enough of just about anything. Anything that we take for granted in this country. So for instance, when you graduate and you move to any other city in the United States, even if it's a small city, even if you get a job in Lansing, Michigan, or you wind up going to Ocala, Florida, or you end up going to Lexington, Kentucky, or someplace like that. Even those small towns, you would assume that there's going to be housing, running water, electricity. But in other parts of the world, that's not the case at all. In some parts of the world, you have electricity on certain days of the week. In some parts of the world, you only have water a couple of times a week. The rest of the time, you're on your own, or you have to save clean drinking water. So we're we're in a very unique position in this country where we take for granted almost amenities in cities that just aren't there in many parts of the world. And cities are growing. More and more people, for reasons related to climate change, are migrating to cities. But they're not finding housing or anything else when they get there. End up in what we call unplanned settlements. Some might call those slums. Research shows that maybe 1 out of every 7 people on Earth, that's 1 billion people, live in slums and unplanned settlements right now. And so when we look at the propagation of disease, for instance, so if you look at India, what's happening with coronavirus in India, or if you look at what happens with Ebola, the breakout of Ebola virus, that spread of disease is because it's almost impossible to social distance when you have the level of crowding that you see in developing countries. It's impossible in a maybe 300 square foot space in a unplanned settlement in Lagos, Nigeria. There might be 11 people living in there. 11 people in a space that might be the size of one of your large closets, right? And so there's no way to social distance. Somebody catches something, everybody's going to catch it, right? And at least here, if somebody got coronavirus or something like that, at least we would have some idea of what was going on. In other parts of the world where the communication networks aren't as haven't penetrated the population, somebody gets sick in that home, they might not know what the person has. They don't know whether it's malaria. They don't know whether it's schistomitis. Don't know what it is. And the person dies and they go through the usual burial ritual. No taking the person to the funeral home. The people right then and there prepare the body. Fluids get exchanged. Next thing you know, you've got an outbreak of some epidemic disease. But we're going to talk more about that next week. Spoiler alert. We'll do that next week. Okay. we're going to move away from the article reviews. I would like to do more, but we have a lot to do today. But just one note, not picking on anybody, but most of you, I asked about the citation styles. I think some of you are using some kind of automated, like maybe the word pro or your word processing software does an automatic citation. Don't use that, because it's just wrong. I mean, it's just, if you look at what that automated citation application does versus what an actual citation. So this is, well, let me see. I think this one's okay. I think this one's okay. This looks like a proper MLA citation for a website. Yeah, that one's good. I'd have to check this one. This one's probably okay too. But I think a couple of the textbooks are edited volumes. So a couple of the textbooks are, why don't I just show you talking about it. And you have to be really careful doing citations for those. Let's see, let me go to student view and content. So again, the textbooks are listed here with course syllabus. I found this, I don't know, that Orton Making Community Connections wasn't showing up. I figured it out. So there it is. But let's see, I think equity, growth, and community is an edited volume, or maybe it isn't. Let me just look at the syllabus. That'll be easier. No, sure. Yeah. So the Handbook of Urban Studies is an edited volume, and so is Resilience Matters. So and so it's kind of tricky because you're really citing the author of the chapter within the edited volume. So just if you look up MLA style or APA style, you want to look at, works in edited compilations, and then you can see the proper way to cite them. But yes, it's a pain in the neck, but you have to have proper citations, if you're going to be doing research. So it's a pain in the neck, and it's really easy to hit the button or whatever, and the program spits out a citation for you, and it's completely wrong. But I do have, just look up, MLA, APA, or Turabian. I don't, Chicago Manual Style. There are several that you can just Google, and they have free style guides online for you to look at. But that's the only criticism I have, and that pretty much everybody in here, I put a note. Look at your citations. I don't know about this. So just make sure they get better as you move on into this week. So let's see, one more, not really housekeeping, but speaking of article reviews, so article reviews 4, 5, and 6 are due on Friday night. You all have been sending me some drafts to look at. That's fine, but just give me some time. I think, maybe a couple people sent me a draft to look at it like 2 hours before it was due. And this weekend I was sitting up there with my mother, and I wasn't going to be like, Mom, I need to look at these students. I mean, you all are important. Don't get me wrong, but I was with my mom. I couldn't just break away. But if you send it the day before it was due, then my mother was a teacher too. She understands, but Yeah, just give me a little leeway ahead of time, but keep sending them. That's fine. I mean, that's what you should do. Notice almost everybody got really good grades on those things, so that's what we want. Okay. So again, yeah, let's just dive into the next portion of the work today, and our focus will be upon urban inequalities. So, okay, this is going to be all right. I'm just going to keep it moving, but I'm going to split this up so that you'll just have a fully identifiable recording